I personally like the fact that his personality and the true Nick Sirianni came out, and you could see how comfortable he was. And I don't think it means that he's deciding, or the Eagles are deciding one guy over another because of rock, paper, scissors. It's just an example of the mundane Zoom interviews that happen. I got to be honest with you. These draft picks, you talk to them, they say it's ridiculous. Some days they have 13 hours of Zoom interviews. So you got to keep it loose in some ways. So I don't have a problem whatsoever. I'm glad that his true, genuine self is coming out now. Do I know if he can coach? No, but I'm willing to give him a shot.
John Clark is one of the most recognizable faces in sports, from athlete to media. And you can follow him at J Clark NBCS. You can see him on NBC Philadelphia, 6:11 p.m. Eastern weekdays. And right now, joining us on the middle. What's up, John?
How you guys doing? There's a lot of pictures, boxes up here, a lot of faces.
Yeah, man.
It's the Brady Bunch open.
Used to seeing this mug right across me when we did have an office, right?
I know. I miss the noise.
Right.
Was Barrett just loud to be loud? Is that what you're telling us?
Oh, yeah, and I love it.
I have to, man. I got to keep things going, man. I have to keep things going, man.
Yeah.
And when we're in there, when we're in there in the studio watching the Eagles games, and I got a question about the guard play, that's who I look to. He can break it down within 5 seconds every play.
Okay, but what kind of a rock, paper, scissors guy is Barrett, though? And that's really the question.
Yeah, we haven't done that.
Barrett is not the guy that throws paper. What was your take on yesterday with the coach?
Well, look, I think in Philadelphia, especially, when people are winning, we like them. When people are losing, or an organization is losing, we don't like them. And I go back to John Kruk. Remember in '93, everybody loved him, that he was a little overweight. He had the mullet. He was chewing gum. The next year, when the Phillies were losing, everybody's like, man, these guys are out of shape. They're fat. So I think it all has to do with where the organization is right now. They had a terrible season, a losing season. We saw a breakup with the coach, the quarterback, a lot of these things. So I just really think anything that is Eagles related right now gets negativity. I personally like the fact that his personality and the true Nick Sirianni came out, and you could see how comfortable he was. And I don't think it means that he's deciding, or the Eagles are deciding one guy over another because of rock, paper, scissors. It's just an example of the mundane Zoom interviews that happen. I got to be honest with you. These draft picks, you talk to them, they say it's ridiculous. Some days they have 13 hours of Zoom interviews. So you got to keep it loose in some ways. So I don't have a problem whatsoever. I'm glad that his true, genuine self is coming out now. Do I know if he can coach? No, but I'm willing to give him a shot.
Well, at this point, man, you're always tied into everything, about the Eagles. And I know you'll have the pick before everybody else, because you'll be at the airport, picking up the first-round draft choice, when he does get here. But at this point, what's the direction you see this Eagle team going, from, just what you've been hearing around the organization, and, which way do you think they'll go with the draft pick, number 12?
That's a great question. You want to make an airport trip like you did that one time for Golden
Tate?
Yeah,
he let me have one time when it was Golden Tate. He gave me the information. I was able to be the first guy there. So, yes, he did share us one time.
It wasn't even like a co-visit. John just handed you over the
he
trip?
did. Yes, he couldn't make it. He couldn't make it, so he trusted me with the information, and I was able to take a camera over there and interview Golden Tate. I was the first interview for him in Philadelphia.
Don't expect stuff like that to happen on this show, Barrett. Right? We don't do that. We need all the credit we can get individually. All right.
H-Town doesn't have enough jobs. He's going to do it.
Barrett is a good airport wingman.
Nice.
But that's a great question about what they're going to do, because I go back and forth about, will they trade up a couple spots if one of their guys is there, like Horn or Surtain at cornerback, or Waddle or Smith at receiver? Could they get up to 9 or 10? Yes. They've got 11 picks. They've got flexibility, as Howie Roseman says. But, you know, I keep going back to how football games are won, and offensive and defensive linemen, as Barrett knows. So it depends on their evaluation of Jordan Mailata and Andre Dillard. But, you know, if an all-pro left tackle is sitting there, or they could trade up a spot or two to get him, I wouldn't put that past them because, you know, you've seen the statistics about how offensive linemen quickly adjust, and the transition is a lot easier for linemen, and they work out more in the first round than receivers. So they could go any which way. I got a sneaky feeling I think they like Horn a little bit more than Surtain at cornerback. And, you know, I would think Waddle would be the receiver, but I think it could go any of those ways. Lineman, receiver, or corner.
John, one of the things that really bothered me about the press conference was that Howie was still kind of in this mode of justification for his picks, and that, you know, the draft isn't an exact science. But is it time for this team to let us know who has the final decision so we know who to hold culpable? Because we know the owner's involved. We know that the scouts are in, and Andy Weidel and all these people. But what we don't know is who is actually making that final call on the pick. I think we need clarification on that.
I think you've got it. It's Howie Roseman. That's
Not
it.
Jeffrey Lurie.
Huh?
Not Jeffrey Lurie.
You know, I've talked to some people, and the word that I get is that Jeffrey is very active and involved. He challenges each department on decisions or their thought process and asks really good questions. But I was told that he has never once said, take this guy, or you need to draft this guy. Howie Roseman gets input from, let's say Jeff Lurie does have input. He's not saying take this guy or you should go this guy over that guy, but let's say Jeff Lurie has some input. Then you have the coaching staff and the fit. Then you have the scouts who've done all the legwork and have in person, you know, at least before interviewed these guys and seen them. Then you've got an analytics department. So that's a lot of different people. And it's not different than other organizations. There's a lot of voices. But Howie Roseman, in my personal opinion, I think he has to listen to the scouts.
But he seems to listen to the owner.
Let's take a look at last year. What's that?
He seems to listen to the owner. When the owner says, I really like this guy, and then you don't take him, then all of a sudden you look bad.
John might have missed that just because there was a little blip on there.
Yeah, okay,
I mean, when the owner says, I really like this guy, John.
Let's start over. Let's just reset. I think, John, you're on a slight delay, so let's just reset.
I can hear everybody. But my point is that last year, let's say Howie Roseman, and he told me this, he said the fit of Jalen Reagor was better for what the coaches want. Let's say that that's the case, okay? Those coaches are gone now. So you have to pick the best player. You have to pick the best player. I understand when you talk about fit, but you know what? We don't know what coaching staff will be here in 2 years. You know, so you have to go with the best player. If that means Justin Jefferson over Jalen Reagor, best player, then you do that. So I think it's best player, listen to the scouts, and fit is one thing, but a coaching staff may not be here in a couple of years.
Wow.
All right, let's can we switch it up to the Sixers, John? Where is Ben Simmons, and what has been going on with him for the past couple of nights?
Yeah, that's a good question. Doc Rivers, he joked, I'm not a real doctor. That's just my nickname. And that Ben has some sort of illness, not COVID related, but maybe some sort of stomach illness or something like that. I think there's a possibility that he could be back tonight because I think he was going to make the trip. Now, that could have changed after the game last night, but that was the plan. But, you know, you have another game against Milwaukee on Saturday afternoon. You know, I would think he's back by then, but it's some sort of stomach illness. And you've seen, I mean, they've been down 3 starters, 2 starters the last 2 games. And a lot is put on Joel Embiid's plate, so much so he's not only being double teamed, he's being triple teamed, quadruple teamed. They're throwing everything out.
John, real quick, I know you said it's not, and Doc, the team has said it's not COVID related, and we know the scare that happened in the All-Star game, All-Star weekend, if you will. But I wonder if I don't know if Ben Simmons has been vaccinated. If you know that, I know that over the weekend, I was one of, I think, a lot of people, right, who got that second shot and was knocked out. And I wonder if there is something as NBA players, right? More NBA players are getting vaccinated. I don't think that it's a full-on everybody at one point got them. Is there anything to that, do you think?
That could be. That's a good point. I know Archie Bradley, he said when he got his shot that it kind of knocked him out for a day. And I'm not saying that the vaccine did this, but he said out of nowhere he had the pain in his side. He just didn't know where it came from. He didn't know how he got hurt. So I agree. Yeah, I agree that could be a possibility. And Doc Rivers did say that he thinks a lot of the Sixers and all their personnel have been vaccinated. So that could be, but I don't know that.
Got it.
At this point, we were talking about it earlier, but do you really think that Embiid and both Ben have lost any consideration as Defensive Player of the Year or MVP of the year? Are they out of this whole competition now because these games they haven't been in?
That's a good question, Bear, but I don't think so. I mean, I think when you look at the record of Joel Embiid, Joel Embiid's record when he plays this year, I could be off, but I think they're like 30-10, and there's no one else that can come close to that. And you saw him last night. He came back in the game midway through the fourth quarter, and he scored 14 straight points at one point. Joel Embiid is the most dominating player in the NBA. And then you say defensively, I think, and this is a great discussion. It's a good question, Barrett, because I think overall, Joel Embiid affects the game more defensively than Ben Simmons. But I think Ben Simmons is the better guarding defender, meaning like Joel Embiid overall, when he's in the game, you see that guys change their plan about going to the bucket. Ben Simmons can guard just about anybody. So is he the better one-on-one defender? Yes, but Joel Embiid really changes the game defensively, and I think they're both up for it.
Yeah, see, this is where I think we get in our conversations, right, John, that blend the line of talking about who's the most valuable versus who's the best. And it's never the same, or it's so rare that it's the same. Even in the NBA, we have arguments, right? But I think the problem for Embiid is always going to be, is he out there enough? Not for us, not for people that know how good he is, Wilt-like influence that he's having on both sides of the floor, but for the voters, for the people that ultimately make this decision on the award. And I think that's why a guy like Jokic not necessarily is better, or that Embiid didn't lose anything. I just don't think Jokic lost any ground.
Yeah, I mean, that's a good point. And I think in NBA history, you see different times where it's not always the best player that gets it.
Steve Nash.
And yeah, exactly. Steve Nash that year. But I mean, look at what Joel is doing this year. The only center that's gotten to the line more per game in NBA history is Wilt. And Joel has really, in his mind, he said this year, I'm either going to get to the line or I'm going to make the basket. And he is dominating that way. So you've seen Joel evolve like this. And I don't think anybody has more of an effect on an NBA game than Joel Embiid this year. So that's why he would be my MVP. And the record, I think, speaks for itself. But they're going to have to come up with a criteria of how many games a guy has to play to be eligible for MVP.
John, hold on. I know the other guys want to jump in real quick. We're going to take a break on the network. Wrap the hour coming up next on Sports Map Radio. All right.
Now we're in the stream only.
On the stream.
Yeah. John's got a podcast too now.
Yes,
everybody too. It's called Take Off.
Right.
Yeah. So you
go
can
ahead.
Get that wherever you get your podcasts. He's got great guests on there too, man.
Oh, everybody's got a podcast.
Was the name of that inspired by the Strange Brew?
Take off,
Take off, you hoser.
Take off.
No. Is he in a tunnel?
What was that other guy's name?
Bob and Doug McKenzie.
Who was the other guy?
Oh,
am I okay? You hear me? Was it Bob?
No, it wasn't Dave Coulier.
No, it's Bob. It's Rick Moranis and Dave Thomas.
Yeah, Dave Coulier was the guy from
Full House.
Yeah,
it Full House.
Yeah, Full House. And then, Dave Coulier was on that show, America's Funniest People, and my godfather who came on and talked about American Gladiators, he was the EP for that show too.
Oh wow!
So, as much praise as we had for Aton on American Gladiators, we should have ripped him for America's Funniest People.
JC, so what are you doing for your draft coverage?
Go ahead, John. What?
I think I might be there with you, Barrett. Are you going to be in studio?
Yeah, I have to be in studio, man.
Yeah.
And they've been busting my chops about it because I can't be on the middle, man. You know, they say my loyalty lies with them. I say, well, at this point, the almighty dollar is pulling me towards.
Yeah.
Pulling me towards going. Yeah. But yeah, we'll be in the studio together. All right.
Okay, cool. I'll be good to see you there.
Definitely, bro. Definitely.
When they make a shocking pick that everybody gets angry about.
Definitely.
Yeah, who would that be?
The shocking pick?
Yeah.
Well, I think it would be a lineman.
Yeah, but here's that's a great answer, John, and I'm curious to follow up real quick.
Possible.
If they took Slater or Pay, like Slater, you could argue right below Sewell, second best offensive lineman on the draft. If they take guys that are ranked high, even Kwity Paye, right, who's played, do you still think it elicits that same reaction as, oh my God, they drafted fill in the blank, they have no freaking clue what they're doing? Because I agree with you, people will be upset if they don't draft corner / wideout, but do you think it'll be like outrage?
Yeah, I mean, I remember those Andy Reid years when they would draft a lineman in the first round and everybody's like, oh, because they want the sexy pick, the receiver and stuff like that. But if you look over these Super Bowl teams and teams that are continually successful, it is that offensive line stability, as Barrett Brooks will tell you. I mean, if the line gives the quarterback extra time, then Jake Rager is better.
Live from the O'Reilly Auto Parts Studios.
Hold on real quick, John.
Aton Shander, Barrett Brooks, and Harry Mays.
All right, John Clark joining us. Final couple of minutes here on the show, and we're getting some great insight here as far as everything across the board from the Eagles to the Sixers. John knows the pulse of what's happening with our athletes and teams better than even some athletes. I bet you John has scooped news about, have you done that before? Have you scooped something about a player? I'm sure, right? Like scoop something about a player and the player finding out about it based on you reaching out to them?
That actually hasn't happened with me. I'll tell you, I mean, back in the day, before Twitter, before internet, you used to hear these stories about old school sportscasters would inform Mo Cheeks that he was traded before the team could tell him because they didn't have cell phones. But I think nowadays teams are getting smart that they have to tell the player right away because that's going to get out on Twitter and social media real quick. But no, I have not been able to do that yet.
Well, he has put me in a situation where I was told something by a player. And then he comes like, hey, B, have you heard this? He'll pull me aside, hey, B, you heard this? And I'm looking at him like, well, John, who told you that? Because the player had just told me, and John knew before anybody else did. And I can't say anything because it's, in confidence of me. And I've had that relationship with the player. But he was able to break it because I couldn't break it, So he has been in those type of situations with myself.
Got it. Okay. It's curious.
At J Clark NBCS on Twitter.
Yep. And one more time on the show, John, for everybody out there, radio and stream who can hear it and follow along and subscribe. That's the big thing. We want you to subscribe.
Oh, I appreciate that. Yeah, I started a podcast, Take Off with John Clark. We had Bryce Harper, Doug Peterson, Daryl Morey. Just had Daniel Jeremiah. And you can go on wherever you listen to podcasts, Spotify, Apple, and please subscribe to Take Off with John Clark. I love the format you guys have here where you can just talk and work things out and understand the why of things. So, yeah, Take Off with John Clark. I appreciate the plug for the podcast.
Well, John,
All right, bro.
on your way out, you give us too much credit. We don't work much out on this program.
Thank you, John.
Thanks, John.
Appreciate you, bro.
See you, sunshine.
Hey,
The majority
There he is.
don't even work out. That's the thing. All right.
Well, he plays tennis, man, religiously.
Big tennis guy.
Yeah.
Overtime coming up next.
If you missed any of today's show on the JAKIB Media channel, listen to the podcast on your way home. Available on YouTube, Apple, and Spotify.